Tracery. This morning on Union Street, I saw Arthur Rimbaud on a girl's bicycle. And then close behind him, Jean Seberg. They smiled at me and waved. Then came Antonin Artaud, weaving and shouting curses. None of them wore helmets. I worry about their heads, which I adore. Morning, cold, fingers, tips, and nose tip, cold and damp, behind ears, rims, as a shiver in a dream of contention over magistracy. In the midst of war, the muses are silent. In the middle distance, a culture of alarms, of grand schemes out of hand. This gray noon, capital is empire. 15 cops, 1 thief, and a crowd. Behind the weather, the storm. Behind a rhetoric of clouds. Behind capital, the war, at odds with the adages arguments concede. A habit broken, taken up again down here. The lyric goes without saying. The news escapes me. Above on the porch, my blue iris, 2 weeks early or 3 years late. Music, invisible, disappears. So strange it's written that music appears and is not heard, reappears without a word. In an age of carts, intercourse is simply a measure of like and unlike. In an era of calculation, commerce is entirely based on the equivalence of like and dislike. Pax Americana. We attend a long and anxious moment of undisturbed calm in our cave of carpets and books that mute the signals as if the stench of the dead had never crossed the imaginary boundary of this new century. Adjectives are insufficient. Verbs are too precise. Untoward, together, insubstantial, they make trial of the heaped objects time leaves behind. This mechanic music holds the elements of its perfection in homeostatic play. The ideologic of its time removes me to dumb reflection, considering the relation of lust to proximity. The ghosts of desire straddle time, which is more fearsome, their allure or their stratagems, clouds of rhetoric, behind which my anxiety and the storm of war. Words are things in poetry and psychosis. They're objects occluded. Never mind, there are others, also blocked and easily found. In Strathcona, I wondered, in this neighborhood, if they came to evict, would the neighbors turn away, or would they mob the evictors like the Egyptian workers I read about this morning in the newspaper? Little houses behind high hedges, secret gardens and green utopian moments, but no squats and no campers in the park. Young girls on bikes catch my eye. You ought to wear a helmet, I think. A shirtless old man with a big red wig and painted face shouts, "It's beautifuler to be a girl." "You got that right," one of them shouts back. On the borderline of day, light disturbs the illuminations of insistent shadows. A comedy, half over, promises much laughter, says the old man, turning over to hold off the dawn. And laughter's only the half of it. Begin again, Mehitable, nouveau-né, with firm feet and stanzas full of broken furniture. The funnies. I wanted to say more than 9 lines aloud. I meant to say more than 9 lives aloud. No, not that. Not the other. Verdichtung equals condensation, a lessening and a getting slowly to that one line, that brickbat Ignaz lobs. Making or finding a knowing, a morning, like this, a broken word reassembled. If the wind is a god, then morning is an afterthought, its breath on my face, a gift from the corridor of leaves. Abandoned, a blessing sought after time. The city questions the wind's disordered ways. Left here to my devices, I stagger my hours, brief service, the politics of lost powers. That which holds us in the long line of day's refusal drops from the horizon, dawn's emerald, not a ring, not a bond, an arrival. Syncopated rhythms of morning divide my attention between you and you, a seeking after and a taking in, hidden behind that cloud. Morning after morning, the residue of dreams inches towards noon. The light dwindles in proportion to the distance it travels. Back across a bridge of sighs, mud-splattered seascape, leaving behind an enchanted forest of hats and scarves and boots, a world made livable by design, a dream of dresses. Morning in night's debt, a harsh breath from the pivot point of generation, simply too loud, with silence, the shattered remnants of law. In a pastiche of morning, the clown repositions the sacred there where reliance on light bears darkness in its fold. When does the time before us become the time that remains? Crossing the bridge of sighs, I'll wait for you on the other side. True love, I have found you because an ox took me, my dear. I still chase the north wind, mistaking it for a thief. That's Vatrique and Raimondine from Tracery, which I must have translated with Donato. Knowing, not grasping time. Not measure, but vision, finding its internal push. Making visible dehiscent beauty. Morning, rain that drenched the yard, the sun, the night, and us down by Pompey, entangled in the garden shed, in the forgetting of time. Morning becomes morn, the scene of dreaming, lost in diminishing dark, a sparkling tableau, firing between words, a done thing or a doing, beginning, alone, going, or just plain darkling. It's such a temptation to comment on these poems. The wayward conveyance of these small songs against the fog of morning before the rain, by sleight of hand, where the letters are mobile, a variant tuning by the ear's fine judgment. A wind arose behind the rain and lent delight to a hampered walk. The dark sheltered us from the plague, soaking thought with light. A scattering of honey where the voice may lie, sweetened by the breath of another. Lines of trembling thought brought back from the juncture of comedy and error. Our tongue renders what the ear hears in its dwindling eternity. choosing from a lexicon of words half seen in their lucidity, striking a match to briefly light the way across a boundary of our own devising, across a bridge of sighs. Après coup. On the breath of arrows, springtide discloses a mode of signifying, untethered from its pole. What pleasure there is in chaining words, one following another, before and after, toward the punctum. This is from Rilke. How much does what we refuse, the invisible, rule us when life cedes to the invisible ruse and becomes invisible again? Slowly, by dint of attraction, our center is displaced, and the heart takes its turn, grand master of absence. Reading through the looking glass. Nonsense is the backside of reason's certainty, the fugitive path from love's grasp. There is a danger in clarity, a trespass on ordinary pleasure at the point beyond the mirror's reach. Sometimes the moon slips in the dark. A thin cup of borrowed light appears and disappears, capricious and true. The night seems to celebrate approximate time in the remnants of rain. Breath informs measure as it punctuates life, tracing a course through leaves like a breeze of letters, counting borrowed time in discordant intervals, arriving somehow there where the breath is baited. The jouissance of an hour at dawn's late arrival, waking to a conference of birds and falling back into sleep where dreams are still welcomed as thoughts that stave off desire, and the writing on the wall is translated back across time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.